Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel CA Aspirant. Today's video is all about how to get a successful result in CA Inter September 26 exams. To guide you further, we have a very special guest who is also one of the admins of our September 26 WhatsApp group and an active member of our CA community. He achieved an outstanding 410 marks in the CA Inter May 26 exams. In this video, he will share his subject-wise preparation, strategy, revision plans, study techniques and practical exam tips that will help you to score good marks and clear both the groups in one go. So without any further delay, let's welcome him to the video with a big round of applause.
Hi guys, I cleared my CA Inter in one shot and this is what I did. I'm gonna tell my subject-wise strategy. So to give you a full picture, I gave both the groups together and I cleared it with 410 out of 600 with 4 exemptions and 93 in costing. So let's start off with paper number 1. Paper number 1 is advanced accounting. So for this particular paper, I identified every unique question per chapter. For example, in borrowing cost AS16, there is a very unique question, that is RTP September 2024, which talks about bank overdraft. So I mark these unique questions and I also mark those questions which covered the entire chapter's adjustments. So that meant when I sat down to revise, I just had to do these selected number of questions. So that way I was able to revise these chapters much quickly and I was able to revise it much faster, and I was also able to revise it more times as well, because for example I had revised AS16 at least 5 6 times. Now going to the next subject, that is law. For law, I actually read it directly from the module. This is my primary source, but I also built my own summary book wherein whatever was done for the particular day, I was able to revise it at the end of the day at night. So that really helped me, because in the morning when you read it from the module, you're just understanding stuff. The exact remembering happens when you read it at night, or when you read or when you revise it. So a summary book is very important. Either you make the summary book or you can refer to any faculty summary book as well. There is no issue of any sort of that. Third point, direct tax, paper number 3A. This was one of my weaknesses. So in order to tackle direct tax, I gave equal weightage to chapters like set off carry forward, TDS, TCS, return filing, residential status and income of scope of income, and agricultural income. Now, what is the advantage with these 5 chapters is these 5 chapters for sure comes for at least 4 marks in the exam hall. They are a short question in the exam hall. So what happens is, if you are able to do these 5 chapters very effectively, you are securing at least 20 out of 50 in DT. The rest 30 marks, you can still scrape through something and score 10. That is because heads of income, I am pretty sure you guys would be at least good in one or two heads of income. For example, for me, I was extremely good in PGPP and I was extremely good in capital gains, but I was really weak in salary. I was really weak in IFOS, and I was kind of neutral in house property. So doing these 5 chapters, I was able to skip the particular heads of income question in the exam hall. Now, moving on to the next subject, that is paper number 3B, GST. Now, if you see your GST paper, question 5 is a mandatory question. Question 6 is again practical question. But if you observe, question 7 and question 8 is always from a theory chapter. That is your last 5 6 chapters. For example, returns, payment of taxes, e-way bill, invoices. These chapters have at least a weightage of at least 5 to 10 marks, but the issue is they are randomly selected. For example, in one attempt you may have e-way bill, in the very next attempt you may have payment of taxes, in the very next attempt you may have two questions from invoices. So I would suggest you to actually give a bit of importance to the theory part of GST as well, because it is easy to score. If you feel studying from the module is a bit irritating, what you guys can do is you guys can actually follow the question bank approach. Following the question bank approach is something that even I did. How do you do that? Open your question bank, see the question the ICI actually test. For example, in e-way bill, if the chapter looks pretty big, but if you see what questions the ICI has always asked, you get a clearer idea of what you're supposed to study from that particular chapter. This is it for group 1 as of now. Talking about subject for cost and management accounting, this is gonna be the first paper in group 2. When I analyzed the previous year question papers of this particular paper, I noticed a pattern. 80% of the questions were directly from the module, only the numbers were different, and 20% of them were new or they were from an old RTP or MTP based question. Now, how do you approach this subject? ICI module is the key. First, start off with illustration, then go with test your knowledge, and in the end, you're supposed to do MTP, RTP, and PYQ for at least 3 attempts. However, I went till May 2024, that was somewhere around 6 attempts. The more you do, the better it is. Also, for tackling the case scenario questions, I would suggest you to do ICI MCQ case scenario booklet. To be very frank, I would suggest you to do this for all the subjects if you have time, but specifically for cost and management accounting because a lot of people lose out on easy MCQ marks in this particular subject. Now, moving on to the next subject, auditing. I started this pretty late. My classes began in the month of January and I finished it in Feb. This was the last subject that I had finished. Honestly speaking, the only way you can ace an auditing exam is when you put in the efforts. You will feel like quitting every day, but you will still have to wake up that particular day, open your book, and revise. There hasn't been a single day where I had not revised audit theory, at least a specific topic, a small topic, anything. You could just do a three-liner topic, and that would be sufficient, but you need to keep in touch with the particular subject. Now, in the end, FMSM Financial Management paper number 6A. Now this is completely opposite of costing. Over here, the MTP RTP style questions have a higher weightage over module questions. Module questions will be there in the exam paper, but it is just that the weightage will be much lesser. It is same as costing. You have to solve as many questions as you can, but over here give more priority to MTP RTP questions. Also, where there are easy chapters like leverages, capital budgeting, or let's say cost of capital, over there where the calculations are heavy but it is easy to solve, you need to have a very good touch on your calculation speed as well. Now, the next and the last is SM. Over here, I did not do anything extraordinarily. I was doing the subject passively. So every day after finishing a particular subject, I would sit down for 2 hours or maybe 3 hours on particular days when the topic was high. I would sit down and I would just watch Rishabh Jain's revision videos, mark through his notes, and revise what I have learned from that particular revision video. This probably I've put the least efforts in, but this is how you're supposed to approach this subject. Don't do this for the entire day, do it passively. For example, I did this with accounts. So the entire day I would do accounts. At the night I would touch SM and I would do it a bit. It was more like a relaxation session because after you do accounts for the entire day, you want to touch a subject which is light enough. Now stick to just one particular notes and keep revising it as much as you can because the syllabus is pretty low in SM. So next, these are not optional, but they have to be done in order to clear an exam. First and foremost, before writing an exam, please do at least two revisions and give at least one mock test paper. Giving just one mock test paper makes a significant difference. You identify where you're going wrong. Second, for subjects like costing and FM, a lot of people say that they are unable to remember the formula, they have to mug up, they need formula sheets. I'm telling you, while you're revising, Write down the formula completely, the entire formula. I don't care how long the formula is, but you're supposed to write it completely. Only this way you can have a touch over the particular formula and your muscle memory will help you in the exam hall. Third, so in FM and costing, case scenario booklet is very much needed in order to solve questions because you have calculations over there. However, I would suggest you to practice as many MCQs from the ICA case scenario booklet for all the other subjects as well. Now, fourth, attempt each and every chapter. Don't skip a chapter completely. I don't want you to do 100% of a chapter, but at least skim through it. At least do 60, 70, or 80% of the chapter, so that if I say ask something from a chapter that you were not expecting a question from, you are at least able to attempt that question. It will not go for a zero. At least let's say you get 2 on 5, or let's say you get anything. Those 2 marks can make a huge difference whether you will write the next attempt or whether you will clear this attempt. Now, I have seen a lot of people use ABC analysis. Honestly speaking, please stop using that ABC analysis. Simple reason being, I feel it is a bullshit method because that is for your reference only. It is not your material. You're supposed to use it to understand which chapters you're supposed to focus on. You should not just study those chapters where ABC analysis has highest weightage. No. You're supposed to only look at chapters where you need to put in more efforts. That's all. But you have to cover all the chapters. Next, MTP, PYQ, RTP questions at least from 2 attempts for theory subjects, for example law, audit, and SM as well, at least 2 attempt questions. But for practical subjects like accounts, tax, costing, FM, try to do as many attempts as practical. When I say practical, however, how much ever you can do. If you feel that you have time to do 4 or 5 attempts, do that. The more you do, the better it is. Now, the order in order to solve the practical subjects are: first, you open your module, you do your illustrations first, then you do your test your knowledge. Later on, you go to PYQ, then MTP, then RTP. The reason I'm telling you first PYQ, then MTP, and then RTP is PYQ questions are generally easier than MTP, RTP, and MTP questions are generally easier than RTP questions. Solving RTP in the very start might depress you and you might feel a bit low. So do that at the very end when you have attempted all the other questions, and you have, by the time you start off with RTP, you will have a very good grip over the particular concept or the chapter. Now last, mark LDR questions. When I say LDR questions, it is last day revision questions. Costing and FM cannot be crammed a day before. Accounts, at least since it is your first subject, you can still give it as much time as needed, and costing also to some extent, because for people who are only writing group 2 you will have enough time. But FM, again, you will have to manage both SM as well as FM. But yeah, for all the subjects, if possible, mark an LDR question where just solving a few questions of that particular chapter, you are able to cover the entire chapter properly and efficiently. With that said, stay consistent, stay disciplined. You've got this. Let's see you in CA finals. Thank you. Signing off.